This Monday.com ad was created by a team of people and AI agents. Reese, our content agent, wrote the copy based on our best practices, like mentioning Monday.com 3 times. That was the second. Johnny, our coordination agent, built the timeline and kept everyone aligned. Olivia, our human creative director, stayed in the loop. Because agents are great, but they don't always know when a joke lands. She had one note: tell listeners it only takes minutes to build an agent. So, minutes. Create your own AI agent today on Monday.com.
Emotionally unavailable.
Okay, welcome back, Kirsten, one of our favorites, to Emotionally Unavailable. Okay, off mic, we were just talking about kind of people's responses to our grief, and Kirsten was sharing that her beloved dog passed away a few weeks ago, and that she has gotten more outward expressions of empathy for that than she did losing her kid. But I do think it's because I don't think that it's like all related to the fact that you lost Kalia by suicide, but I think that that's part of it, and I think it's because they're like, I don't know how to touch child loss. I'm kind of like I can. Did you get flowers and shit? Did you get like has anyone gone overboard about it?
I have. So because it's sort of weird timing, and I've got the book that from my dog's point of view.
I know. That's why I was like, wait, what?
that I've just
No.
launched. Yeah. So he died a couple of weeks before the book launch. So I haven't told everyone that he died because, that's stupid, isn't it? Because people like death is, as we know, something no one talks about. So you've got to be sometimes careful. And I was like, I don't want to put a dampener on it and stuff like that. And just saying this, Buster was my beloved dog, but he was almost 18 years old, and I put him down, and he had health conditions and stuff. So I haven't told a whole host of people, but when I tell them, they will sit there, look me in the eye and say, I'm so sorry for losing your dog. And some of these people are the same people that have never talked to me about Carly's death, which is really fascinating. And yeah, it's really, really strange. But I think it's because we know animal loss, like most
Everyone's
people have
lost a
lost an
pet.
animal. So they can, it's safe. It's safe to say, I'm sorry you've lost your dog, whereas your daughter is pretty hard, and it's just fear, but it's cruel. Like, it really is cruel.
Well, that's what I was wondering, is
we
if you have found yourself feeling any resentment at those people, like expressing so much concern and empathy.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking about it. Like, I often talk about that grief isn't the problem, silence is, and I've probably taken not even listen to my own advice because I've been fairly silent about Buster dying, and but it's just because I suppose I've had that extreme reaction. And so there's probably a little bit of anger, or not anger, but a little bit of hurt underneath that I certainly had an outpouring of love when Kalia died and all those things, but it's the everyday conversation. It's the lack of it being a difficult conversation. It's the lack of seeing that shock on people's face. It's that lack of silence. I tell you something really hilarious. It's not funny. I just mean hilarious in the fact that you never quite get used to it. How do I put this? I was in a work situation with someone that I hadn't met of probably a leadership role. Well, definitely a leadership role. Just trying to work out how to say this in
You're like, let me
fine
not
way.
get myself in trouble.
Anyway, yeah. And I'm very honest about Kalia's death and how it's changed me. I'm not in my day-to-day work life. I enjoy my job, but I don't want to progress. I really love my grief work, and that's where I want to go. So I'm very clear about that with any leadership person. I'm just that way now. Blame it on grief, I don't know.
Yep.
And I told him this, and I said, Kalia had passed away 2 years ago, and it really changed my world. And, so this is how I am now. And he didn't even say anything. He just said,
sat there.
He said, the worst thing is he didn't just sit there. There wasn't a shock or anything like that. He said, I understand that I don't want to progress either, and just completely ignored the fact that my daughter had died.
My
And I
God, I
just didn't know
can't.
what to do. I was just like, oh, okay. Not ever had anyone completely ignore me before.
I
I've
have.
certainly had silence, and I've certainly had, oh, I'm so sorry, and change the subject, but
Mhm.
actually not completely ignore. It was really bizarre.
That just tells me so much about them. Like, they're
Oh, yeah,
probably a person
of
who
course.
does that in their everyday life all the time about everything, makes it about them.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah.
wild to
But
me.
isn't it? But he probably would have said sorry about my dog.
Probably. And I wonder, I really do think that part of you, I I really kind of think that there is this piece of you that has received the love that you have gotten from the people that you've told, that is so hurt by the lack of response that you've gotten about Kalia, that you don't want to, it's like a preventing more love related to your dog, because it's not fair that you went through,
Yeah.
have gone through 2 years of shit in your grief, which, I mean, propelled you to do the work that you're doing and whatever. I think so much of that is how we find meaning in things sometimes, but still, you've gone through some real shit with it. And I know myself, I would be, the resentment would make me not tell people, because I'm like, no, I'm not giving you an opportunity to be here when it's comfortable for you. Like, it's uncomfortable. Well, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I agree with that, and maybe that's some of those lessons that you learn. And of course, so much of it is unconscious, and it's not until
Yes.
you really talk about it that you unravel how you're feeling and what you're doing. And at the end of the day, pets are really important, and I love animals, and I certainly had a close relationship with Buster. I mean, I wrote a book from
Yeah.
but it's not nearly the same as losing my daughter. Also, Buster was at the end of his life, and he'd done, been a wonderful companion. But my daughter, there's the trauma in there. There's the suicide. There's the fact that she's not here. She should
Yes.
be. She had a whole life ahead of her, and all those things. So to put losing Buster on the same the same
Right.
line or the same tangent as Kalia is unfair as well. Like
Right.
yeah, I mean, it is all grief, and I certainly did grieve losing Buster. Whole different scenario though.
Yeah. Did losing Kalia and going through that grief process make I'm hesitating because I feel like I know the answer to this, but was it easier? I can't think of a better word. Like, did you go into losing Buster with more understanding of how to take care of yourself, and
Yeah,
like, what, like, was it, did you have a better understanding of the grief process, so it like alleviated some of the stuff? Because I have a dog
it
who's
was
very
really
old too, and I
yeah.
think we're in our last times with him.
It was really interesting. It was a really, really interesting experience because it completely mirrored Kalia's death. So Kalia was in a coma when she died, and then she passed away with me holding her hand. Buster was euthanized, and he, was put into a coma or put to sleep, however you put it. And I held his paw as he
Hmm.
died. It was really, I found great similarities in how they died. And one side that could be extremely triggering, but I actually found it really, really comforting.
Okay, good.
The Yeah, obviously with Buster, I was prepared for it, and it was a choice of mine. Well, yeah, I suppose a choice. I mean, you have to do it for your animals when they're in pain, but it was it was beautiful actually as he passed away. It felt right. I guess that's the
Yes.
difference. So it
Well, and
felt
that's what I
right. He
wondered
didn't.
too, if
Yeah,
you choosing and getting a say over when helped not heal, but not be, because I think I've shared with you, like, my animals have all put me into quite a panic, like, all the time. It's part of my PTSD is to worry about their safety far more than is
yeah,
normal. And
yes,
so I will
yeah.
almost go into a full blown panic a lot. And so I in some ways, when I think about losing our oldest dog, which I think we still have a little bit of time, in some ways, Jake was so close to him, I'm glad he won't have to experience it. But then, like Bryson says, well, but he should be here to help me with that, things like that. But I worry that if it is sudden and I don't get a choice, how bad that's going to be for this already existing PTSD, and how I could see it would be comforting to get so much choice in the end of life for him.
I find that
Hey guys, it's me. Emotionally Unavailable is produced 100% in-house by me with no team. So if this show has ever helped you and you want to give back, subscribe to the Patreon. There's several different levels with different benefits in each. Check the show notes and you can see what each tier subscription will get you. There's also lots of fun things coming down the pipeline for the Patreon subscribers. So get in early. You can get a workbook, you can buy merch, you can do any of the things, and all of that supports the show to help it keep going. Really appreciate every single one of you. I love you so much, and I can't wait to see what we continue to do together.
so fascinating because I have the exact same thing, which is really interesting. I started fostering cats, and then we
I remember
obviously
that.
we foster failed and adopted them, as you do. And, um, but I'm so glad that we got them before Buster died, because I wouldn't have got another animal. But I have the same. So if the cats go out and I don't know where they are, I have extreme panic about where they are,
Mm-hmm.
what they're doing. Are they okay? And it's so heightened, it's not funny. And I spent years, well, probably since Kalia died, maybe actually just before she died. When she first had attempts, I was terrified of Buster dying. He
Oh,
was, it's a
really?
Jack Russell. He was almost 18. So most their lifespan's like 14 or something. So he
Mm,
lived ages, and always terrified. I mean, I would look over, and if he was in his dog bed, probably 5 times a day to check he was breathing,
we do it all the time.
and I
Yep.
yeah, and I've never actually linked those two together, which is funny. And so I was terrified of it. It's my worst nightmare. And I write in the book that I write, an acknowledgement from Buster to Kalia saying, "I hope you wait for me. Wherever you are, I'll be your sous chef," because he used to be in the kitchen with Kalia. So I thought things like that when he died. And I also, the book is, sorry, I keep going on about the book, but it's just because it's about Buster. The book is called Stay. And when I took Buster to the vet, I said to Buster, "This is me staying for you. This is me doing it for you." And that felt really right. But I'll tell you, when he died, it was a relief is such the wrong word. It was just because it felt right that
Yeah.
it was a relief that it had gone so well. It was almost that anticipatory grief that I'd had for so long, that
Yes.
fear that I would find him dead, that I didn't know what to do, the shock. And I'll tell you something lovely that I mean, my vet is incredible anyway. They love Buster. They're just hilarious. She used to call him short stuff. It was just such a lovely relationship. But she fed him Hershey's Kisses as like chocolate kisses as he had the injections and things.
Oh,
So, it was a really caring and loving environment for him, which was so kind. And
yes.
so it, I almost feel better that he's died in one aspect. Obviously, I miss him, than that worry I had for so long beforehand, if that makes sense. It sounds a bit
Listen, this
horrible,
is why
actually.
it makes
Yeah.
perfect sense, because that you're describing exactly how I felt when I found Jake, because
Mm,
I had lived in constant fear of it for off and on for a long time, but it had gotten better as he got better. But those last couple of weeks, I mean, I would have found him much sooner, but I was afraid to go in his room to check on him.
yeah.
Like that fear was ruling me a lot. And so I remember standing there at the door being like, "Okay, we don't have to be afraid anymore." And I I still remember that very well. So it has stayed to where I'm like, I don't have these. I know that I hear people talk about so much of their grief is in what their child is going to miss out on, but especially the things that I learned about what he was doing after he died, I'm like, there's no fucking guarantee he was ever going to do any of those things. It helps me stay very where I am. And like
Mm.
I I don't have as much of the like future forecasted grief as I would have if I hadn't lived in constant fear before, and if I
Yeah.
didn't know. It feels like, I can't say this for certain, but it feels like it was a foregone conclusion. Like we were going to be here in one way or another at some point or another very quickly based off the things he was doing, that just putting his life at risk and other people, and I
But
just, it helps.
I think that that's the questions and things that I struggle with anyway. As humans, we're quite arrogant anyway. I mean, we think that
Yes.
we're going to be here forever, that we're going to do all these miraculous things, and it comes down to what you believe in and what you believe about the afterlife or the
Mhm.
universe or God or whatever. We don't actually have a tomorrow. None of us have a tomorrow. It's not foregone conclusion, but we treat that we do,
Yeah.
which is really weird. It's really, yeah. And I just think it's a human arrogance that we have. So, I mean, I like to think that we have no choice, that it's a time that we go when we're meant to go.
Yep.
I think that that's something that's given me some comfort. Some days I believe that, and other days I don't. It depends on what what part
Yeah,
of the
no, I
roller
hear you. I
coaster
hear
I'm
you.
on.
Most of the time,
Um,
I'm like, this was when it was scheduled for him to go. And then there's those times that I'm like, okay, I can't say that for sure, but I'm also comfortable with the possibility, like all that. I thought about you a couple of weeks ago whenever I was, something in the panic conversation we were having, and something you just said made me think about this. But we went to this local water park that we have, and I climbed my little ass all the way upstairs to go down a water slide. I've always been a little bit afraid of these things, but in my mind, as I'm walking up, I'm like, no fucks to give. If it's my time, it's my time, whatever, until I'm standing there looking at the tube that I'm about to go to. Okay, first of all, Kirsten, pretty nondescript slide. Not that serious, but I looked and the beginning part of the slide wasn't covered. Bro, my brain went straight to worst case scenario. I'm flying out, all the things. The panic's starting to rise. And I will say this, there is no stopping and just pushing through panic for me at this stage. Like, worst case scenario, period. You're not going to convince me otherwise. And so I was standing there and I was talking to my other son, and I was like, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can do it. I don't think I can do it. And he was like, then walk back down. And I was like, okay. And my husband happened to come too. So I was like, here, will you send my tube down the slide so I can walk back down without it? But the panic, because it's funny because I stay in both worlds all the time. Whatever happens, happens. If it's my time, it's my time, whatever. And yet I'm so scared of everything all the time. Like it
yeah.
just, something triggers the fear and it is all consuming, and it's usually related to my safety or somebody that I care about safety. And I'll just be, that's it.
I would challenge it a little bit and say it's not even fear. I think it's that trying to control. Like we sort of have, like we've had the worst chaos in our world happen, and then there's an element of us that just wants to control things all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I do it when I'm in the car or driving, and something will happen, and like my partner will be driving something, go around a corner fast, and I'll just automatically think, oh, we could die now. Yeah. We we could die in the car. How do I feel about this? And I do get worried. Like, I'm like, it's obviously an unreasonable feeling. But again, sitting in two worlds, I'm like, oh God, we're going to die. It's just going around a corner. The other side is, oh yeah, I'm okay if we die. Yeah, I'll get to see
Yeah.
Carlia if I die. Um,
Yes.
but it's really, and I think that it shows up as fear, but it's our way of trying to actually control things
Mm-hmm.
because we've been thrown into a world that we didn't choose, that we, that is completely flipped upside down, and we had no control at that time.
Yeah.
I was going to say, and it made me think, sorry, going back to when Buster died and when Kalia died, I had the most incredible thing happen when Kalia died, and I often think about it, and I often, it sometimes gives me peace. That so when she was in a coma, and my partner and I left. Her father had just gone to the hospital, and so we left. It's a bit awkward. I hadn't seen him in 20 years. And
Oh, that is
we
awkward.
and we yeah, I know. And we oh yeah, hadn't seen him in 20 years, sitting there, been up 24 hours, no bra on, looking hideous. It's never a good thing.
Yep.
I still had a degree of vanity even at that time. But we had walked away, and the hospital was incredible because it was outside of our town, and they'd provided us accommodation. So we went to go into this accommodation, and I stood outside, and I had the most incredible feeling of peace that I've never had in my life. And I thought, oh, everything's going to be okay. Everything is going to be okay. And then walked into the hotel. They urgently rang and said, get back to the hospital right now. And then they told me that I had to say goodbye to Kalia. But I often think about that time, just that feeling of peace and that feeling of being okay. And I believe that that was her communicating with me that everything would be okay. Obviously, not the okay that I interpreted it to be, but
Right.
certainly her being okay. And it makes me, I think that was such an incredible gift to have right before she died. And that was probably the last time I felt any sense of peace, because it was like I just surrendered at that time. And I think that after trauma, we tend to latch on and hold on to things. And that's something I'm actively trying to look at the moment, is to try and take away that control, because we have no control. It's all an
Right.
illusion. So us
Right.
being in fear or trying to control thing is just an anxiety response, I guess, and it doesn't stop the outcome. So I'm trying to remember that moment of peace somehow. I'll
Yeah.
let you know if I get there. It might be an impossible task, but I don't
I
want to
think it
live
might help
feeling
you
controlled.
if that becomes your happy place. Because if you have
Mm,
a happy place in your mind that no matter what you're trying to change the energy for, that you go there. Because like my happy place is always envisioning myself on a beach, either at the lake or ocean or whatever, but sunset where it's just across the horizon, and I'm smiling and my arms are out. Every time it changes my energy. So maybe that can be part, maybe actually remembering that moment can help get into the energy of it. I think people really underestimate the trauma response when you have those traumatic losses, because that's even a different child loss space when you lose your child in a traumatic way, or like us finding him, things like that. It was literally the thing I was the most afraid of for his whole life. So it was
yeah.
the thing that I was doing everything I could possibly do in my mind to prevent that from happening. And it happens far more often than I would appreciate. But I also do think for a large portion of my life, I really do feel peace, but I think it's because grief made me shed things that don't give me that. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I I just don't, I can't. I don't have it, cuz like I will be a straight up bitch to somebody if I try to give from this place that, I mean, I don't feel like my capacity has grown a ton in the last 7 months. It's pretty much the same
Right.
as it was that first month. I mean, I remember things better. And I can do some administrative things a little better, but like I'm doing great on my schedule, like waking up and things like that. I'm doing good on that. But like in terms of, it's where I really struggle with capacity is my compassion for,
Mm,
but not
mm,
in general, but like if you're coming to me because you want that from me, I don't have a lot to give. And I do think some of that's related to feeling like I didn't receive enough as much as I would have wanted. I don't know. But I think there's a little bit of resentment there because I'm like, well, isn't that cute? You want me to support you through this, and where the fuck have you been? It's been 7
I
months.
think that yeah, and it's so interesting because as humans, I'm thinking that song, and Kalia used to sing it all the time, Skinny Love, like we do the little things, we do the easy things so well, but any level of depth people run away from. And I think that, yeah, you've got those small things, those, like they don't feel small, but in our willingness to give compassion, like that you're I don't know, that you've had a bad day at work, or you're going through a change process at work, or all those things that, yes, they impact you and people get a lot of compassion about because we all understand them. But when it's a death of a child specifically, or a partner, those
Yes.
untimely deaths, whatever word, people just don't do it. They
Yeah.
just, it's like, oh, that's too hard, I can't do that, I'm just going to move on over here and give someone some love who's lost their job.
Yep. Yep.
It's really it really, really fascinates me. And would I have been that person? I would hope not, but I don't know. I've actually not known, before Kalia died, anyone who had lost their child. I certainly knew people who had. I had lost friends when I was at school, but didn't deal with their parents as such.
Right.
But I, so I can't even sit here on my moral high horse and say how wonderful I am. And sometimes it's not until you're in it, but once you
Right.
know it, you can't unknow it. Like, I think people listening to these conversations, once you know how damaging and hurtful it can be to avoid, just don't avoid. Just sit. You don't need to fix it. You can't fix it. You
Right.
cannot fix that our children have died. But you can sit in that space and just be a comfort. And you can say their name. Like, that's so important. And if you bring up Kalia, or if you bring up Jake, it's not going to make us upset. We may have tears, and sometimes it's because it's a
Right.
bit of relief that someone's bloody brought up their name. But we are thinking about them constantly. We know that they've died. When Kalia died, because it was so foreign to me, I used to, and I don't know if you do this, but I used to have a loop on in my head going, Carly is dead, Carly is dead, Carly is dead. I used to say it over and over and over in my head all the time just to get it into my brain that she had died. I used to, because I also had a fear that, you're talking about fears rule our lives, I think,
Right.
that I would forget that she died, and, especially when I'd gone to sleep and wake up and have to, because people talked about that and having to remember that she died. So I was terrified that that would happen because I really thought that that would break me. And
Yeah.
so I just used to constantly be like, Carly is dead, Carly is dead, Carly is dead. And like, even if I dreamt about Carlia, often in my dreams, she would sit there and say to me, I'm dead, remember that I'm dead, mum. And so it was fascinating. So I never forgot that she died. So yeah, the fact that if someone had come and talked to me and said, "Hey, how are you? How do you want to talk
Yeah,
about
they
Carly?" I
really
would
do
said
believe
yes,
that.
absolutely. It would have been a much nicer conversation than the one going on in my head. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. I kind of thought this was an isolated experience, but I remember this does not happen this much anymore, but I do remember specifically that first month having trouble sleeping, and then every time I woke up, that was the first thing, Jake's dead. Like,
Mm. Yeah.
and I word that nicer when I talk about it to other people because they don't like when you say he's dead, but that's what he fucking
Yeah.
is dead. So
He
like
is dead.
that's
Yes.
what that's
Yeah.
what my brain would be like, Jake's dead. Okay. And then I'd be trying to go back to sleep, but the flashbacks were there and there was all this stuff that first month that was just so hard. But yeah, and I have heard people say this. I've heard people say they don't want to listen to my podcast episodes about it because it makes them too sad. And to that, I really wish the fuck they wouldn't say that to my face. That I just wish they'd. Wow, that was something you could have actually held in. You chose to say that one out
Yeah.
loud. Thank you. I've
But
also
again,
heard.
that's that. So that again is that avoidance. So don't talk to
Yes.
you about your son, or don't talk to someone about, I mean, God forbid we say the death word.
Right.
But
Don't say dead or
this is
died.
life. Yeah, this is absolute life. And it's not sad. There's sad aspects of it, but it's actually just real. It's
It
just
just is
being
what it
authentic
is.
and real. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah. Because I don't live, and I don't think you do either, in a constant state of sadness. I wouldn't survive
No.
this if I did. I purposely structure my life to be able to get the most joy out of it as possible.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
then there are moments where I'm like, I feel like I probably need to tend to this right now because maybe I haven't looked at my grief close enough recently. Like I know if I'm more tired, if I'm achy in a way that's different, there's stuff in there that I need to address. I've been a little too happy, I'll put it. Like it's not because that wasn't real, but it's because I have to coexist with grief all the time, and sometimes it needs actual attention from me. But
It
I think
does.
where people are getting this wrong in a big way, like the biggest thing is that there's one single way to show up for someone who's grieving, and that is to just be able to sit there and listen to them talk all about whatever. I personally, even with the people I'm the most safest with, he just comes up naturally in conversation the way he did when he was alive.
Yes.
That's the
Yes.
conversation, and then we're going to move on. I want presence. I just want people to be with me. Like, you are completely avoiding me because you don't know what the fuck to say? Well, why don't you say, do you want to get coffee? And we can do what we've always done together. And then if I bring it
Exactly.
up, you don't act awkward about it. Like, it doesn't have to be, I'm not asking you to be my therapist. I'm not asking anyone to do that.
No, and you're right. It's just that presence, and you're still a person, and you need to, because grief can, as we know, can be so all consuming. Sometimes you just need to remember that you're a person, that
Yes.
you're still a human. And I love where you talk about, because one big thing, and it seems so simple to me now, but one big thing that I realized with grieving Kalia is we do live in such a black and white world. And, again, you support someone this way and not this way, and there's such a merge in color. But the thing is, we have more a capacity for more than one emotion at the same time. I can be sad and I can feel joy at the same time. I can
Yes.
be laughing and happy and miss Kalia. I can be, distraught and, angry and all these things, but I can also feel peace at the same time. Like we have such a huge capacity for emotion, but we tend to, really make it like, oh, it's this or this, or I need
Yep.
to show up as this or this. Well, it merges and life merges. And, um, there's just, it's not, we try and make things, well, I was going to say we try and make things too simple, but we actually make them way more complicated. It is
Mhm.
simple that um, being there for someone can feel hard because you're sitting in an uncomfortable space, but you get over that really soon. It's you on the
Yeah.
water slide. You sitting there at the top of the water slide and thinking, oh God, what am I doing? That's,
I'm gonna
it
die.
can feel like that to show up to someone who's not in a good place or not
Yes.
happy. But you actually, at the minute you sit there, you're like, oh, actually, they're pretty much the same as they were, and we can have this conversation
Yes.
and we can say the word death, and it's not gonna, I was gonna say it's not gonna kill anyone. That's a really wrong, wrong thing to say.
Not
But
even
you know what I mean?
intentional.
Like
I
it's
love
not.
it.
Yeah. I remember, so I was going to say I'm quite lucky. I am very lucky, but I was only with my partner for, I think, 6 months or something before Kalia died. He had had a past partner who he'd been dating who had died a year or so beforehand.
Oh my God.
It was really interesting because he was the one that said to me, you can say death. Like, why do we mince these words? So I actually had permission from someone really close to me to talk about Kalia being dead. And I do purposely use the word, I'll often say loss and things like that. But I say it because we're conditioned to say loss. Because
Or
I haven't
path.
lost my daughter. She died. She's not
Yes.
like under the table sort of hiding there. She did die, and I don't think it's helpful to lessen it all the time. And we don't need to be scared of death. I mean, like we all, I mean, surprise, we're all going to die, I hate to burst that bubble
Well,
that
and
everyone's
talking about
got, but
it's not going to make it happen sooner or later. Like talking about
no,
it's not going to make your fate or whatever you believe in any different. And that's because of the work I did in hospice and, some of the classes I took in undergrad. I knew that saying the words dead, dying, death were important. And
yeah,
so
they are.
with family, I've been really intentional about saying it because it can be harder for us to like fully embrace the fact that he's gone. Even though, still, for me, my nervous system has this really organized where it's almost harder to believe he ever existed than it is to like that process that other people go through where they really just like they're gone. They're gone. For me, I'm like, he's dead. He been dead. I don't even know if he was ever real. Like, it's a really weird, strange thing that I felt like some real shame over at first because I didn't know how to give it a vocabulary, but I recognize this is just how my brain and my nervous system have organized my grief in a way for me to survive this. And I don't have to judge it and I don't need to feel shame and you just rest assured you give me a Mercury retrograde or a period and I'll be feeling every ounce of the loss fully. Like it comes in waves and I just ride each little wave. When it's low tide, I'm happy about it because I can survive that.
I think that that is such an important aspect of grieving that probably people don't talk about, is that there is one, I don't know if it's a fear, but it's certainly, I've had that. Did she ever exist? Was she even here? Are people going to remember that she was here?
Yes.
All those, I think that that's actually quite a big aspect that does hold a lot of shame. It also makes you sound crazy,
Thank you.
so
Do you
we hold
understand
that
how
in.
I've had a
But
couple of
yeah,
really strong reactions to me saying that? And I'm like, yeah, you don't get it,
yeah,
but that's okay.
yeah. No, and I've certainly felt that, and I do still feel that. Not all the time, as you know, like you call it waves. I know that people call it waves, but I think that like when I think of a wave, I think of a beautiful sea, and I think of the waves
Mm,
lapping the shore. I know
I'm
that it's
scared of
about
water.
yeah, I know it's about those big ferocious waves. So I always just think of it more as a roller coaster because I don't even know what's going to happen. and
God, so fair.
but yeah, but and I do have those feelings of was she even here? The reason I started writing was because I had such a fear that I would forget her. I mean, it's
Yes.
ludicrous. Like you can sit there and say, "Well, you're not going to forget your daughter," but when you're in these moments and in your head, you can be so destructive, as we know. And
Mm-hmm.
I was so convinced that I would forget her. And the other thing that we do forget them, and it's because of part of that grief. So you talk about
Yeah.
your nervous system takes over. We do forget. I mean, I still can't do time. I've spoken about that so much. You asked me when it
But
is. I'm
that's
like, I don't
survival
know.
mode.
Yeah, yeah, and so we do forget things. The memories do come back, but it is a very real fear that we forget them. And then because you're forgetting things, you sort of think, were they even here? Was it even a
Yes.
real thing? Is it, am I making this all up? And also the other side is because people stop talking about them, and because people seem to move on and get through, and I hate that word moving on, but it does,
Yeah.
life continues. You go to the supermarket and it's still the same. Your world has stopped in this one point of time, but everyone else keeps going on. So you feel like you're in the matrix, like that the world
Yes.
just doesn't even make sense anymore. And then, yeah, so there's all these feelings that come through, but if you express this to people, people just look at you like, they need to get the straight jacket ready
Yes.
and be
Yes.
dial, so you're right. There's such a level of guilt and shame and silence that we hold in for fear that people think that we're nuts. Whereas it is, I believe it's really normal, but I
Well,
don't know
I
if
heard
everyone
someone saying
experiences
it
it, but
on TikTok once, and it gave me permission to finally say it out
yeah,
loud because
yeah,
I was like, okay, I'm not crazy. If there's one other person saying this, then it's not just me. So I can release some of the shame. And this is why it's so important to be honest about things, because you are releasing someone else from their own internal prison when you are honest about your experience. That's why it's no holds bars around here. I'll just say the weird shit, because I wasn't saying that one at first, but eventually it comes out. And I really, it was so confusing. It was so confusing. And I was forgetting him. But that is because my brain was really incapable of anything at that point other than survival. I was,
Yeah.
I was, having to make sure I ate and make sure I hydrated. Okay, speaking of that, because I do want to get to the book. But I was wondering what your thoughts on this were. I got a little, I don't even know what the word for this is, but I was a little defensive slash bothered. I don't know why, but this lady was talking about a loss that she experienced. I think it was a child loss. I think she had either a stillbirth or something like that. She was expressing kind of being pissed at people for doing meal drop offs on her porch. And I'm like, bitch, I loved meal drop offs on my porch. I didn't want to talk to anyone, but I certainly wanted to be fed and like nourished. That was a really big one for me, just feeling nourished. Because we got a ton of gift cards for Uber Eats and DoorDash, so we used them. But when people made food and dropped it off, that was the no. Now I do that for people. Like, no, if they're going, if surgery, whatever, I'm like, I will make you food. And so I think I probably was like I was like, oh no, I'm in trouble. I did something wrong, because I've now taken up the tradition of like making people food in a crisis. But I'm like, you didn't want the food. But her thing was, I would have preferred presents over just dropping food off on the porch. And I'm like, wow, I didn't want
Yes.
anyone over other than his friends. Those were the only
Yeah.
people I let come over.
I have probably a different take on this. So I think that doing those things is really important. I didn't like it. And I like it in retrospect because it showed people that they were caring. At the time, I felt so much anger and I felt guilt. I felt that I was benefiting from Kalia's death. And so I didn't want anything. Like I was like, I don't, why am I getting food? Callie is dead. Like I've done nothing. I really went down there. I used to call it death food. Oh God, here we go. We've got some more death flowers. People would send wine. I was like, well, death wine. All those things. Like I was really not in that space.
Yeah.
But I certainly wouldn't have preferred presents over food.
Right.
That doesn't sit well with me. Actually, my friend gave me a tattoo voucher. That was one of the only things that I took. But you know why? Is because I was able to get a couple of Kalia's tattoos Kalia loved tattoos, that she had, and I got them replicated on me.
That's
So
so
that felt
cool.
purposeful, yeah. But if someone died tomorrow, would I drop off food? Absolutely. Because even though at the time I found it really hard, when I look back, those are the moments that I think, oh, that was when people were there for me. I just wasn't in the place to be able to
To
accept that
receive,
people were there
yeah.
for me at that time. I also had a lot of anger because Kalia had attempted a number of times before, and that year before her depression and anxiety had really increased, and a lot of people dropped off over that time. So I had a lot of, well, where were you when we needed you? Where were you for that
Yeah.
whole year before? Why did Kalia not get meals cooked for her after an attempt? So I was really in that space. So
That makes
I sort of
perfect sense
think,
to me.
yeah, so mine was a little bit different, but I would always encourage people to do food, do jobs, take the decision making. Like people came and
Yes.
mowed my lawns, and that was great because I also felt an incredible sense of vulnerability. I didn't want to go outside because you
Fragile.
suddenly feel like your life is on display, like you're the person
Yeah.
that's daughter's died, and so I didn't want to go outside. So I had a front lawn at the time, and so someone came and mowed that. That was fantastic. For me, sitting out there for half an hour mowing a lawn was my worst nightmare. So
Yes.
I think those acts of service and food, and I love the vouchers. That's such a nice idea. Food
Yes.
vouchers and things. I think all of those are important. But without, like, I had people that dropped it off, and because there's a time, like, you don't want an influx of people all the time. I don't know. It is
I was
about
exhausted.
read,
I could
reading the
not
room a
talk to
little bit.
people.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
no, and but I'll also tell you that I got a form of PTSD, and I think it was it's not real PTSD, but because so much was delivered, like every time my doorbell rang, I would be panicked. I would be like, oh
Oh,
God, here we go, another death package. But
yeah.
like I said, not like, when I've reflected back, that was such a support to me and made me feel really connected and loved. I just because of the place I was in at that time doesn't mean that I didn't care for it or I didn't appreciate it at the time, but on reflection I did. So yeah, please
And
don't
that
take
makes
my
perfect
messages
sense to
not to
me.
do that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I'm glad that ours was done in an official meal train that people signed up for, so we knew when to expect. They would be communicating with us if they were dropping something off, and they would ask, "Do you?" I mean, after the first one friend in particular did a lot of meals, which I'm never going to be able to express gratitude enough for, because it gave us this excitement because she's such a good cook, and we'd be like, what is she bringing? She didn't tell us before, and we'd be like, what's it gonna be? And she was like way overdone. It was so nice, and I would know what to expect. But after that first time when I said porch please, it was never expected that I had to even come and greet her. And another person, when they were on the way, they asked, do you want porch or presents? And I said porch please. Like, I just didn't want to talk to people. I was exhausted. And I think this is the first time I might be saying this out loud, but Jake died in our home, so he was removed from our home. Thankfully, it was like winter time, so the sun had gone down by the time he was removed, but I know damn well my neighbors watched it happen. And so I felt really on display anytime I walked out of my house, because if
Yeah,
one of them
yeah.
were out, I know how I am, and that's why I'm projecting. I'm projecting anything that they could have possibly been thinking, because I know who I am, little Miss Nosy Ass, and I am empathetic. So anytime if something had happened like that to my neighbors and I saw them outside, I'd be like, "Oh my God, their kid died. That's so sad." Like whatever. But I was just kind of like worried that they're observing me, and like one, like, I guess I'll use the word judging. Like, do I look too happy? Or, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? I
yeah.
got over it really quickly in terms of like, I'm not going to act any different than what I would authentically. But I still think about it every time I leave my house, but I don't
Mm,
worry about it. But I think about it every single time I leave my house. I take note of who's outside every single time, because I know, because the sirens came and all of that, so it got everybody's attention, and then they saw the medical examiner's car pull up. They, you know what I mean, like all of it. And so I just know. I live around some boomers who have nothing better than to do to have watched the whole thing unfold. And that was one of the like, when it happened, my oldest kid went outside and was like yelling, and
mm,
inside I was like, oh my God, all the neighbors are going to come outside. But I never said anything, because I was like, Melissa, let the boy do what he needs to do right now. But inside, I'm on the phone with 911, like, God, he's out there fucking screaming.
mm.
Like, not good, not good. But I'm glad to hear you name that too. Okay, so I
Yeah.
do want to talk about your book, because when you told me about this book, I was like, what a beautiful fucking idea. So just tell us again, like, what the premise of the book is, and all of that.
So Buster was almost 18 when he died. So he was 17 and a half when I wrote the book. And so he'd been a part of our family for such a long time. And it actually started as a joke. My partner said to me, "You," because I talk to my dog all the time. That's, now I have to talk to myself. And I talk
Or
to
your
the
cat.
dog all the time. And we've created a personality. Well, he had a personality, but I'm sure we've created a bigger one. I used to sing to him and all kinds of things. I'm quite, nuts with him. And my partner was like, you should write a book from your dog's point of view. And I was like, oh, don't be silly. And then I was like, hello, this is a great idea. Because I often thought, like, one, animals teach us so much about presence and about being there and holding space for us. And also, I wondered how he would feel about losing Kalia. Kalia was his person as well. And, she had moved back home before she died, and she used to lie on the couch every night and rock him to sleep. He was such a big part of our lives. So I wanted to write a book about that. And it sort of addresses simplistically how we be there for someone else. And animals do it so well. I think about the times that I was crying and yelling, and all at Buster. He was that my safe place that I could do that, because there is no judgment. When you talk about judgment before, we know that animals don't judge us. And it was a way of being able to express. Or I would just hold onto his face and stare at his eyes and say, why did this happen? What happened? And he wasn't worried about me. He didn't make me feel crazy. He was certainly one of the safest, I was going to say people. He's not a person, I know that. One of the safest places that I had in my grief. So I've written it through the eyes of Buster, but it's not. There's elements in there that are sad, but it's got humor all the way through it, which I like. So it's called Stay, A Dog's View of Grief, Love, and Ordinary Days. And it starts off with morning and afternoon, then evening, then life things. So it's just about how he spends his day and what he observes. And he talks about Kalia dying and just understanding that she's not here anymore, not understanding, but just accepting it, and that his person, who's me, is behaving differently, and how he can maneuver it. Like, he tries to not be upset with me when I forget to feed him and things like that. And then it's just a little bit of reflection of, when the kids grew up and what it was like. But, I've sort of added humor in there. Like, there's a neighborhood cat who he can't stand called Nigel. And, and about how he talks about that humans apologize too much, and humans apologize for just being, and he's never apologized a day in his life. But if anyone should apologize, if anyone should apologize, it should be Nigel, because Nigel exists. So it's sort of a little bit of life lessons in there, as well as
Yeah.
just a bit of fun. So people, some people just read it within a day and enjoy it, and some people spend longer. It sort of just depends on where you are on your capacity and space. But
Yeah.
I enjoy reading it. I had a book event the other day, and it was really funny because I'm not great at, I do public speaking. I don't love it. And Mark, my partner, came with me, and I said, can you read from the book? I'll do the speech, and can you read? Just again, capacity. I wasn't feeling it, great capacity. And so he read it, and it was so enjoyable hearing someone read it.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
laughed, and I just enjoyed it. And I really enjoy hearing it and reading it, and it still makes me laugh. And it
Yeah.
just feels, it's an enjoy. Yeah, I do love it.
Where
Yeah.
can we buy it?
So it is on Amazon and all the online platforms. It's also, I do have a web page called This Is Grief, which talks about, I've got 2 books now. I've got actually another one coming, which is a workbook.
Nice.
And because I do a Sunday newsletter which just talks about, like, conversations like these, just things that come up for me during the week, and sort of looking through them. And so I've based a workbook on those. I call them tiny invitations, on those newsletters. And there's 40 of them, but it's got activity, like writing exercises and little rituals, and also some colouring in pages, because when I was initially through grief, at the beginning stages of grief, something that really helped me was making puzzles. I used to always laugh at people that made puzzles, I have to be honest. And I'd be like, oh God, I'm
Yeah, I'm
turning
doing
into a
Legos
grieving.
now, so I get
Yeah.
it.
Grief is turning me into a dork now. But
Oh,
I,
I'm now the
I,
person who spends hours watching animal videos and doing
yes,
Legos. So yeah, I
yeah.
get it.
So I did puzzles because it would stop my brain and I could just focus on a puzzle. So what I've done in the workbook is created colouring in pages for that same reason. So that's the next thing. But yeah, I have sort of different courses and things on the website. So this is grief.nz. But like you, I'm just crazy busy. I do love it. Yeah.
Yes, I know you do. Well, I hope that you'll continue to come back. You've become such a lifeline for me. I get really good feedback about our conversations every time. And I brought you
I
up
love it.
the other day. I was on with a grief person, and I don't even remember why I was talking about you or what you said that helped me so much now. But I brought you up in that conversation. I talk about you a lot, actually. So well, because you're really well, actually, I had a friend who lost her daughter in a very similar way to how I lost Jake not that long ago. But so it's nice because I can say anything I want and I'm not scared to say it. But I also am trying to be a support to her too. But like with you, it's just, I can say whatever the fuck and you're not going to be freaked out. So that's like a gift that keeps on giving. So, and even just
Yeah.
your response to that tattoo picture that I posted the other day, like you're so good at naming the stuff that I'm not always confident to name. You know what I mean? So like your presence is so just important to me. So I hope that we'll continue to do this. But I don't think I knew about your newsletter, so
Absolutely.
I'm going to make sure I sign up and I'm going to get this damn book. I'm really excited. I'm sorry to hear that we don't have Buster anymore, but I'm excited to learn about
Oh,
him.
but he left a stamp on the world, and I want everyone to get to know Buster because he is so incredible. He did teach me so much, and he was such a support. And I was lucky. I was like, if his purpose in the world was to help me through this, I mean, I'm sure he's got other things, but he did the most amazing job that anyone could do. And I am so lucky that I got the time that I did with him. And he lived a very
Yeah.
full life. And he did the Zoomies the day before he died. So he was in a good
Wow.
place when he died.
Oh.
And I mean, I was terrible. I used to feed him steak and chicken and things. So as his main diet. So he had a glorious lifestyle.
Love it. Well, I'm going to get the book, I promise you. And I'm so excited. And just thank you for who you are and being here.
Oh, thank you. And I love our conversation so much. And I love this connection so much. Thank you.
Good. I'm glad because I really do too. Okay, I'm pressing stop. Hold on for 1 second. Thanks for coming to Emotionally Unavailable. If you haven't already, like, subscribe, and share. Emotionally Unavailable. All right, that's it from me. So make sure that you check out the show notes for links. And until next time, let's all just keep swimming.
INDEPE and cut.